It's now 16 minutes to 10 a.m. right here on Salam Media. And of course, it is News and Views. I'm standing in for Inayat Wadi this morning. And joining me right now is Democratic Shadow MEC for Health, Jack Bloom. He's joining us this morning to talk about the controversy or at least the issue of no food at the Chris Hani Baragwanath Academic Hospital right here in Soweto. Jack, good morning to you and hi.
Good morning. Nice to be with you.
Thank you so much for making time this morning, Jack. In terms of the situation at the Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital, what have you been able to find out as the DA?
Well, I found out this week that there's shortage of food, most critically bread. Can you believe it? This is the largest hospital in South Africa, and they're running short of bread. It was so bad that staff and medical staff were buying lunch for patients, from the hawkers or coming in with extra food, and various charity organizations got involved, which I think is absolutely shocking. And then I did some further investigation. The hospital stinks in various places because the medical waste is not being removed. The company that's supposed to do it hasn't been paid. And that's the broader problem. The reason got shortages in various areas because it's nearing the end of the financial year for the Gauteng Health Department. It ends at the end of March, and they call it the dry season. They run out of money. And there's also some contract problems. So if you're a patient or a doctor or nurse at the hospital, I mean, you just expect that food will be delivered on time, medical waste will be removed, and things will run smoothly. After all, this is a hospital that's been very well run in the past. What is going wrong now?
Jack, there seems to be a problem with regards our public, public health facilities in Gauteng province. If it's not the Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital, it's Charlotte Maxeke Hospital. I'm told that part of the problems at the Chris Chris Hani Hospital are because of the fact that there's been an overflow of patients from Charlotte Maxeke Academic Hospital. What's happening with regards the health facilities in the Gauteng province? It really does seem, Jack, that the government doesn't have a handle on it.
Well, yes. You talked about Charlotte Maxeke Johannesburg Hospital. Well, the fire was nearly a year ago, and we still don't know when it will be fully reopened. I have to tell you, if this was a private facility, they would have fixed it up and it would be in operation long ago. But, there just seems to be massive corruption, waste, incompetence, you name it, and people suffer. Now, what's happening is that the patients who should be going to Charlotte Maxeke, particularly the casualty patients, are diverted elsewhere. They diverted to Helen Joseph Hospital, which is a complete disaster. There's patients sleeping in the corridors for days until they get admitted to a ward. And Chris Hani Baragwanath is also suffering. And of course, the people who are dying, because that's what's actually happening, are heart patients and cancer patients, because you can't replicate that easily at other hospitals, and that's what should be up and running at Charlotte Maxeke Hospital, and it isn't. And after life academia, you would have thought that psychiatric patients would be much better treated. Well, I'm sad to say, there's been psychiatric patients. The ward burned down at Charlotte Maxeke Hospital, so they've just distributed them to other hospitals where it's overcrowding, terrible treatment, and just symptomatic of a general problem. The Gauteng Health Department. There are 37 hospitals. There are more than 300 clinics, and unfortunately, this is years of lack of investment in maintenance. That's why buildings are falling apart. Poor management, corruption, you name it. This is what the department suffers from.
Jack, the Gauteng, the Gauteng province just recently tabled its budget for the next financial year, and education and health receiving the lion's share. But according to you, this hasn't really helped even the billions that are put aside for health.
Well, look, let's put it bluntly. Health has a very large budget. It's 59 billion rand. I mean, you could run the city of Cape Town on that. It's larger than many provincial departments. It's just terribly badly spent. But at the end of the day, they're running out of money because it's the end of the year. So they do need a rescue. And the strange thing about the Gauteng budget is that there's zero increase, not a single increase at all. It's zero increase. I mean, obviously there's inflation, and medical inflation is higher than normal inflation. I'm just gobsmacked, quite frankly, because if you look at the money that's frankly gone missing and stolen, it's about 2 billion rand. That was my estimate. The department will say we don't have enough money, and we'll just spend what you've got properly. But they have the reason they're not paying suppliers. They owe about 3 billion rand. That's a huge amount of money to suppliers who haven't been paid for some as long as a year or 6 months, and that's why they're cutting off supplies. So I think there needs to be a rescue package for the Gauteng Health Department, but you don't want to throw good money after bad. You actually need to have decent management. So the Premier of this province, Premier David Makura, 8 years ago became Premier, and he said he would seek a, quote, urgent turnaround of the Gauteng Health Department. That was 8 years ago. Since when we've had life Esidimeni, fires at various hospitals, scandal after scandal. Where is this urgent turnaround? And I'll tell you what the real problem is. Got the wrong people in the wrong jobs. And that's because of cadre deployment and because of corruption. People put their buddies. And what we need to have is the right people in the right jobs. And, honestly, I would have thought of being, after 8 years as Premier, we would have done that. But it seems that we have to start from scratch. I do think there's a rescue package needed for this department, but it must come with strings attached, sort this department out so that they spend the budget properly and we don't have doctors buying lunch for patients.
Mm-hmm. When the story broke, it really was about crisis management. It seemed that like what you're saying to us right now, that the administration of the department seems to be in the doldrums. But here's the thing, Jack. How significant is it that a hospital as big as Chris Hani Baragwanath is running out of food for patients? I mean, in the bigger schemes of in the bigger scheme of things, if you want to look at it from a South African health perspective, it really is a bit of egg in the face.
Well, absolutely. So the department's been very embarrassed about it. And now they claim, oh, no, there wasn't a real food shortage and we're restoring bread. I can tell you now, if it wasn't for the bad publicity, things would go on much as they are. And we can't go on like this. I think that we need to have decent management. Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital has more than 6,000 employees. It has a budget of more than 3 billion rand. We need the best people to run that department, to run the hospital and the department. So it is, as I said, I was just astonished this week, when I heard about that they shorted bread. And then I found that the situation is worse than that. They're running out of all sorts of things. So not a matter of saying, well, we'll pay them in the new financial year in April. They've got a backlog of 3 billion rand of outstanding payments, and they've had no budget increase. Now, the other complaint of the staff at the hospital, and that's why they had a picket yesterday, was that there were 8,000 COVID posts that were created to fight the epidemic. Chris Hani Baragwanath got about 800 of them, and they're only going to reappoint 400 of them. Their contracts come to an end at the end of this month. Now, the issue is they were appointed for COVID, and that might be at a low ebb at the moment. You never know. It could rise up very quickly. It's been very unpredictable. But the fact of the matter is that all our hospitals are grossly understaffed. So to now cut staff they've already had is just absolutely tragic. And I fully understand and sympathize with the staff at the hospital.
I mean, it's just really coming at a worst time at a pandemic, and it really isn't a good thing. A final question to you, Jack, in terms of holding those people to account, who are to be held account for the absolute chaos at our public hospitals in Gauteng. How's that going? Are you winning?
Well, I think the real deterioration of the Gauteng Health Department started. It was about 14 years ago, in fact, when the MEC was Brian Hlongwa. And there was massive corruption happening there. You know that he only appeared in court a few months ago. So if you're going to take 12 years to prosecute corruption, then people think they can get away with it. And on top of that, we had all the PPE corruption, and we want to see these people in court, and we want to see them in jail, and there shouldn't be any excuses until there's real consequence management. People suffer in jail. Then I think things are just going to continue like they are.
Jack Bloom, as always, a great pleasure speaking to you. Thank you very much for your time, and keep up the good work. We hope to hear more from you, and keep them honest
Thank you. I'll do my best.
In the corridors of power.
I'll do my best. Thank you.
You're welcome. Jack Bloom there. He is the DA MEC, the DA Shadow MEC for Health in Gauteng. He's has always blown the whistle on the public health sector whenever there's problems there. And this time he says, look, even when the new budget comes in April, they still have quite a lot of money that they owe from the previous contracts. And he says every year we have this at this time of the year between March and April, when hospitals run out of supplies, and what normally happens is that people aren't paid, and we saw this last week, where for days critically ill patients didn't have food to eat, and doctors and nurses were putting money together to buy them mealie on the cob and to buy them bread. And yes, we had a humanitarian organization respond as well. But that is the condition of our public health system in the Gauteng province. Not very good at this particular moment in time. That was, and obviously we'll be just following up on that story to make sure that eventually the patients did get something to eat. It's 4 minutes to